The road outside Brookhaven looked almost empty at night. Streetlights stretched across the quiet highway, glowing softly over rows of small houses and closed diners. Jamal Carter drove carefully, both hands on the wheel, music playing quietly in the background. He had just finished a late study session at college and was heading home to surprise his mother before the weekend. Life felt simple in that moment. Finals were approaching, his grades were strong, and a scholarship interview waited just weeks away. Blue lights suddenly flashed behind him. Jamal's stomach tightened instantly. He checked his speed. Perfectly within the limit. Still, he slowly pulled the car over to the side of the road, just like his father had taught him years earlier. Engine off. Hands visible. No sudden movements. Every instruction repeated itself automatically in his mind. Lessons passed down, not out of paranoia, but survival. The police cruiser stopped behind him. Officer Daniel Reeves stepped out, adjusting his belt as he approached. His flashlight beam cut sharply through the darkness, landing directly on Jamal's face. "License and registration," Reeves said, his voice firm. Jamal nodded calmly. "Yes, sir." He moved slowly, narrating his actions as he reached for his wallet. "I'm grabbing my license from my pocket." Reeves watched closely, eyes suspicious. "You know why I pulled you over?" the officer asked. "No, sir," Jamal replied honestly. "You were swerving." Jamal frowned slightly. He knew he hadn't been, but arguing never helped. "I understand," he said quietly. As Reeves returned to the cruiser with Jamal's documents, another car slowed down across the street. Inside sat Emily Harper, a local bookstore owner driving home from closing late. She noticed the scene immediately. Brookhaven was a small town. Traffic stops were rare at this hour. Something about the tension caught her attention. She picked up her phone and began recording from her car. Back near Jamal's vehicle, Officer Reeves returned, his tone sharper than before. "Step out of the car." Jamal's heartbeat quickened. "Did I do something wrong?" "I said step out." Jamil complied carefully, keeping his hands raised slightly. The cool night air hit his face as passing headlights illuminated the scene. Reeves began questioning him rapidly where he was coming from, why he was out late, whether the car belonged to him. Jamal answered respectfully, explaining he was a college student returning from campus. Reeves glanced inside the car repeatedly, as if searching for justification. Then the situation escalated. "I'm going to search the vehicle," Reeves said. Jamal hesitated. "Sir? May I ask why?" Reeves's expression hardened. "You refusing." "Nay, I'm just asking the reason that..." The officer stepped closer, voice rising. "Turn around." Amali, still recording from a distance, felt unease growing. The interaction didn't look routine anymore. Jamal's posture remained calm, compliant, almost rehearsed with caution, yet the officer's aggression continued increasing. Within seconds, Jamal was handcuffed beside his own car. "Sir, I didn't do anything," he said, confusion and fear mixing in his voice. Passing cars slowed. Someone else stopped briefly before driving away. Emily kept recording. The search revealed nothing. No drugs, no alcohol. Nothing illegal, yet Reeves continued detaining him. Minutes stretched painfully long until another patrol car arrived. The second officer spoke quietly with Reeves before glancing toward Jamal with visible uncertainty. Eventually, Jamal was released with only a vague warning. No ticket, no explanation. Just humiliation left behind on an empty roadside. Jamal drove home shaken, hands trembling against the steering wheel. He didn't tell his mother everything that night, only that he was tired. But sleep never came. The next morning, Emily watched the video again. The more she watched, the more uncomfortable she felt. Jamal had followed every instruction perfectly. The escalation made no sense. After hours of hesitation, she uploaded the video online. She didn't expect anyone to notice. By evening, thousands had watched it. By morning, millions. Comments flooded in. Some viewers expressed outrage, pointing out how calm Jamal remained despite aggressive treatment. Others defended the officer, claiming viewers didn't see the full story. Brookhaven, once quiet and unnoticed, suddenly appeared on national news. Reporters arrived within days. Jamal's life changed overnight. There. Cameras waited outside his house. Journalists asked for interviews. Classmates treated him differently, some supportive, others distant. The police department released a statement claiming the stop followed standard procedure. But the video told a more complicated story. Community meetings quickly turned tense. Residents argued loudly about policing, safety, and race. Families who had lived side by side for decades suddenly found themselves divided. Jamal never wanted attention. He only wanted fairness. During one televised interview, he spoke calmly. "I wasn't angry," he said. "I was scared, because I didn't know what I did wrong." His honesty resonated across the country. Meanwhile, internal investigations began. Body camera footage surfaced, revealing conversations between officers contradicting the official report. Reeves had admitted there was no clear traffic violation before initiating the stop. Public pressure intensified. Emily, initially nervous about sharing the video, received messages from strangers thanking her for recording. She realized that without proof, Jamal's experience might have been dismissed entirely. Weeks later, a courtroom hearing was scheduled. The small courthouse overflowed with reporters and residents. Jamal sat quietly beside his attorney, trying to remain composed despite the overwhelming attention. Officer Reeves testified first, repeating claims of suspicious driving. Then prosecutors played the body camera footage. The room fell silent. The footage showed Jamal driving normally before the stop. It captured Reeves, stating privately that he wanted to check him out, despite no violation occurring. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The narrative shifted instantly. Under questioning, inconsistencies in the officer's report became undeniable. The justification for the stop collapsed piece by piece. For many residents watching, it was the first time they confronted evidence that bias could exist not through loud hatred, but through assumptions made in seconds. Outside the courthouse, protests remained peaceful but emotional. Some demanded accountability, while others struggled to reconcile their trust in local law enforcement with what they had seen. The judge ultimately ruled the stop unjustified and ordered disciplinary action alongside policy review requirements for the department. But the biggest change wasn't legal, it was cultural. Brookhaven began hosting open dialogues between residents and police officers. Training programs expanded. Transparency policies were introduced. Conversations once avoided became unavoidable. Jamal returned to college, slowly rebuilding normalcy. Though fame faded, the impact remained. He received letters from students across the country, sharing similar experiences, thanking him for speaking calmly instead of responding with anger. Months later, Jamal walked past the same stretch of road where everything had happened. The streetlights looked the same, the town just as quiet. But he felt different. He realized courage didn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looked like staying calm when fear told you not to move. Sometimes it looked like a stranger choosing to press record at the right moment. Emily later met Jamal at a community event. They spoke awkwardly at first, both unsure what to say. Finally, Jamal smiled and thanked her. "You changed everything," he said. Emily shook her head. "No, I just showed what was already there." The town of Brookhaven slowly healed. Not by forgetting what happened, but by learning from it. Trust rebuilt itself carefully, conversation by conversation. And the video that once divided a town became a reminder that truth, when seen clearly enough, has the power to change even the quietest places. In the weeks that followed the court decision, life in Brookhaven did not immediately return to normal. Change rarely happened that quickly. The town still felt divided, but now the conversations were more honest than they had ever been before. Local cafes that once hosted casual morning chatter became spaces for serious discussion. People who had never spoken about race openly were suddenly asking questions. Sometimes awkwardly, sometimes defensively, but at least they were talking. Jamal tried to focus on finishing his semester, yet attention continued to follow him everywhere. Professors treated him with careful kindness. Classmates often approached him to share opinions, and strangers occasionally asked for photos or handshakes. He appreciated the support, but part of him missed being invisible. Before the traffic stop, he had simply been another student working toward his future. Now, he represented something larger, something heavier than he ever intended. One afternoon after class, Jamal sat alone in the campus library reviewing scholarship materials. The upcoming interview suddenly felt more important than ever. Not because of publicity, but because he wanted his life to move forward based on his achievements, not just a moment captured on camera. As he practiced answering questions aloud, he realized how much the experience had changed his perspective. He spoke more confidently, more thoughtfully, understanding now that his voice carried weight. Back in Brookhaven, the police department struggled with its new reality. Officers attended mandatory training sessions focused on communication, bias awareness, and de-escalation techniques. Some embraced the changes, recognizing an opportunity to rebuild trust. Hooray! Others resisted quietly, feeling unfairly judged because of one incident. Chief Reynolds held multiple town halls, standing in front of angry residents and concerned families, answering questions that grew more difficult each week. During one meeting, an older resident stood up and admitted that, before seeing the video, he had always assumed complaints about unfair treatment were exaggerated. His voice shook slightly as he spoke, confessing that watching Jamal remain calm while being treated with suspicion forced him to reconsider beliefs he had carried for decades. The room fell silent. Not because everyone agreed, but because honesty like that was rare. Emily watched these changes unfold with mixed emotions. She had returned to running her bookstore, yet customers constantly brought up the video. Some thanked her for her courage, while others accused her of creating unnecessary trouble. At first, the criticism hurt, but over time she understood that discomfort often accompanied progress. She never intended to become part of a national conversation. She had simply followed her instinct that night when something felt wrong. One evening, Jamal visited the bookstore after recognizing it from an interview Emily had given. The bell above the door rang softly as he entered. Emily looked up from arranging books and froze briefly before smiling warmly. Their conversation started cautiously, both unsure how to address the event that had connected their lives. Eventually, they spoke openly about fear, responsibility, and the strange reality of becoming symbols in a debate neither had chosen. Emily admitted she almost didn't upload the video because she worried about backlash. Jamal confessed that part of him was grateful she did, even though it turned his life upside down. Without proof, his experience might have faded into memory like so many others. They both realized that change often depended on ordinary people making uncomfortable decisions in ordinary moments. As months passed, Brookhaven slowly began rebuilding trust through small but meaningful actions. Officers started participating in community events without uniforms, playing basketball with local teenagers, and attending school programs. Residents who once avoided conversations began greeting officers again, cautiously but sincerely. Progress wasn't perfect, and disagreements still existed, but the silence that once covered problems had disappeared. Jamal's scholarship interview finally arrived in early spring. Sitting across from a panel of interviewers, he felt nervous but grounded. When asked about leadership and resilience, He didn't focus on fame or controversy. Instead, he spoke about patience, communication, and the importance of staying calm when situations felt unfair. He explained that real change came not from anger alone but from persistence and accountability. The interviewers listened closely, clearly moved by his perspective. Weeks later, he received the acceptance letter, along with confirmation of the scholarship. Holding the envelope in his hands, Jamel felt a wave of relief stronger than excitement. For the first time since the traffic stop, his future felt fully his again. He shared the news with his mother, who hugged him tightly, proud not only of his achievement, but of the strength he had shown through everything. The story, that once dominated headlines, gradually faded from national attention, replaced by new events elsewhere. Yet in Brookhaven, its impact remained visible. Policies had changed, conversations continued, and people carried a deeper awareness of how quickly assumptions could shape outcomes. One night, nearly a year after the incident, Jamal drove down the same road again. The streetlights shone exactly as they had before, casting long reflections across the pavement. This time, however, he felt calm. The fear that once tightened his chest had softened into determination. He understood now that while one moment could expose injustice, it could also spark growth. As he passed the spot where he had once stood handcuffed beside his car, he didn't feel anger anymore. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. That night had changed him, changed a stranger who chose to record too, and changed an entire town, willing slowly and perfectly to confront truth when it finally became impossible to ignore.